So it's been confirmed that Tszyu is making his return to the ring on Easter Sunday, April the 5th, back in Australia for the WBC International Middleweight Championship against an undefeated Albanian contender named Denis Nurja. Now, to a lot of us, that's going to be a bit of a surprise, Tszyu coming back at 160. I think he did talk about it a bit, saying that his next fight's going to be at 160, but in my previous videos, I'll probably writ it off a bit, thinking that, I guess 160 isn't a super tough division. It's really not stacked. And yeah, to be fair, at the top, it sort of is up for the taking. But Tszyu, the losses, the nature of those losses against Tszyu, I don't want to see him go against bigger guys that are going to punch even harder than what, the beatings he took at 154. I almost thought, granted, the thing is, he has potentially got a route to a world championship at 160 because the division really isn't that strong. Whereas at 150, I don't think he beats any of the champions. And he's already lost to two of them. I guess Murtazaliyev's not a champion anymore, but he lost to Fandora twice, got beaten down by Murtazaliyev. Boots would eat him for lunch, and to be honest, probably so would Virgil Ortiz. You look at the champs at 160, Janibek would cook him. Him via Adames would be a good fight. I think Adames would get the better of him, but like I said, Adames would be a good fight. Lara, he could have some joy against Lara, to be fair. Lara's old as hell. Lara's been around for a minute. So maybe Tszyu could beat Lara. I guess if that's not the angle he's taking. He's fighting for the WBC International belt, but that could potentially be the angle he takes to get a world championship at 160. But he has to beat this next guy. He has to beat Denis Nurja. Now, I've looked at Denis Nurja's box rec. Don't realise a single name on there. But he's 20-0. And he's fighting for an international belt. From what I can see on his resume, he's a guy who's pretty much European level. So this will be a step up for him. So, naturally, you're going to see, is Denis Nurja at the level or is Tszyu still at the level? The only way Tszyu, in my opinion, probably loses this is if he's just shot to bits. And those 3 losses that he took at 154, and they were bad losses. If we're being honest, they were kind of beatdowns. He was kind of taking beatdowns, particularly in that Murtazaliyev fight and that second Fandora fight. The first Fandora fight was competitive. Again, took a ton of shots, though. Took a ton of shots to the head. So, even though it was competitive, he lost and took a lot of damage. Rematched him again, took even more damage, got finished that time. Murtazaliyev put a beating on him as well. Those are 3 bad losses. And it wouldn't surprise me if Tszyu comes back and he's not the same Tszyu that we expect. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Because they were bad losses to come back from. But again, this Denis Nurja guy is 20-0 with like 9 knockouts. So not a insanely scary puncher. Whereas, if he was a guy who's 20-0 with, 16, 17 knockouts, I'd be like, okay, Jesus. We're feeding Tszyu to the wolves a bit here. But Denis Nurja, maybe he can outbox Tszyu. He's going to have the size advantage naturally because Tszyu's a career 154-pound fighter. But Tszyu has been there and done that for a number of years now at this level, at 12-round level, top of the division, world-class level boxers who he's been facing for the past couple of years in particular. Of course, former world champion at 154, in my opinion, was never seen as the guy at 154. I think the period when Tszyu was at his best was when Jamel Charlo was the guy at 154. And I think since then he's aged a bit too many miles on the clock. And then, of course, 3 bad losses, in very short, not necessarily in very short succession, but recent enough to a point where you're looking at him thinking, well, he's got less fights ahead of him than he's got behind him. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. He's coming towards the end of his career, is what I'm trying to say. Especially when you take those losses like that. And again, win or lose, he probably only has a couple more fights left in his career. I understand, boxing's a business, so he's got to make as much money as he can for as long as he can. So, completely appreciate that. But you never want to see a guy stick around for too long and take fights that he probably shouldn't be taking and taking damage he probably shouldn't be taking as well. But let me know what you guys think of this fight. Have you heard of Denis Nurja before? Tell me, can you guys fill me in? Have you seen this guy box? What do you think of him? Is he a good boxer? I'm going off Tszyu because I know Tszyu's name. I know his resume. I know he's a former world champion as well. Yes, he's had some bad losses, but he's moving up a weight division. Maybe that added weight can serve him better, have a bit more sting on the end of his shots. Let me know in the comments below. Another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.